The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk. 20 years ago, a forward-thinking teacher at the former James Monroe High School and his students decided to take on the then AIDS epidemic head-on by having teens talk with teens about stopping HIV and the spread of AIDS. They formed the HIV Peer Education Group, which put young people on the front lines in the war against AIDS. Now, 20 years later, at the current Monroe Academies, the teacher still manages the very same group. And so tonight, we're going to help them commemorate this historic anniversary, review the last 20 years in the fight against AIDS, compare now and then, and also show you the TV news story that I did as one of the first journalists to report on this program. So please join me in welcoming back to BronxTalk a Monroe Academy teacher and a member of the National Teachers Hall of Fame, Mr. Tom Porton. Always great to have you, Tom.
It's great to be here, Gary.
And a former student who was an HIV peer educator many, many years ago and is now a human resource manager at a Bronx charter school, Janelle Askew. Janelle, welcome to BronxTalk.
Good, thank you. Glad to be here.
It's great to have you. Mr. Porton, I know you said that you weren't going to shout out to the current students, but I'm doing it right at the top of the show. Thank you to the current Monroe peer educators for carrying on the tradition. So I took care of your business
Thank you very much.
We do shout outs on the show. But I do want to find out about the 20 years of this wonderful program. Why did it start? What happened along the way? And how is it that this program is still in place?
Well, it started in, I guess, about 1991 when 2 or 3 of my students in my leadership class said they wanted to do something about this new disease that was starting to affect their community. And in fact, one young lady said it was affecting her family. And what we did was we made contact right away with a group called Project Bravo and a woman named Elizabeth Ruffin, who was a member of that group, who was a teacher of peer education, an HIV peer educator herself, who then taught these kids how to teach their peers about safer behaviors. What happened then was we started doing classroom presentations, but it seemed to the students that that wasn't enough. So we wound up piling into my van, which became known as the AIDS van, and setting up on street corners around not only the Bronx, but also around the whole city, and doing street corner outreach, teaching people about HIV and AIDS and about how to protect themselves.
And I guess the motivation was wonderful because it came from the students who, in their own lives and in their own communities, had seen the devastation of this this terrible disease.
Right.
And of course, it's a little harder right now to relate to it if you don't remember it specifically, but it was devastating, especially in impoverished urban areas like the Bronx. So it was the students that said, you know what, this is good. We want to do something. That's a wonderful thing.
It was the ultimate dream of a teacher when students come up with an idea and actually facilitate it themselves.
Why has it lasted all these years? Because I guess along the way, the AIDS story has changed. We've been able to deal on some levels with HIV. Why has this been able to survive despite the fact that some of the dynamic has changed?
Well, certainly the borough in which these students live and go to school is still a center of HIV infection. So it's not like it disappeared from the community. Yes, there are medications that have impacted the disease, and yes, it's not treated as the disease of the week the way it was in the early 90s. But the reality is that it's still out there, and it's still something that's impacting lots of families within certainly our school community. And from what we find out at these annual conferences that we do, impacting a lot of communities within the Bronx.
I should mention on the phone we're going to be joined by the research specialist of the Adolescent AIDS Program at Montefiore Hospital, Justin Toro. Good evening, and how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. How are
Good.
you?
We're fine. Thank you for joining us. I just wanted to check in with you, make sure you're there. We're going to ask you right now to just give us an idea of how AIDS and HIV is affecting the Bronx now. We realize the numbers are probably not showing it's like it used to be, but undoubtedly right now it's still out there, and that's why Mr. Porton and his youngsters still have a job to do.
So the Bronx, being the one of the smallest boroughs out here, seems to have one of the highest rates of HIV here in New York City, and it's just reflecting on the fact that young MSM, men who have sex with men of color, those being Latino and African American, are the highest group that are continually increasing and being infected with HIV. Mm-hmm. And it just shows you that with the Bronx being one of the poorest urban boroughs in the city, that these factors do affect someone's HIV status and their transmission of HIV.
I want to bring Janelle Askew into the conversation. Don't you go away, Mr. Toro. We're going to get back to you and break some of what you just told us down. Janelle, thank you for joining us tonight. One of the things that I thought was fascinating about the program that had started was its effect on the youngsters who did it. That not only did you do good work, because you were part of it way back when in the first couple of years, but it had an effect on you. Talk to me about what the effect of participating in this program was on you, your growth, your development, your education, and all those kinds of things.
Well, prior to joining the group, I was very shy, very withdrawn, but attending the classes that Liz held and teaching us what the disease was, how it was transmitted and things like that, it just gave me a sense of purpose and wanting to help the community and my fellow peers. And I was very drawn to really want to get out there and participate in the things that the group was doing.
Let me just say, they're showing a picture that was on in the, I guess, Newsday at that time of you, those many years ago, 1993, I think it was.
Yes, many years ago. But as I was saying, and I just wanted to continue to do more and more, and I got involved in other groups, AIDS groups as well.
I want to emphasize the sense of empowerment. So here it was, a terrible problem. You're working with young people. Mm-hmm. Young people say, wow, I can actually have effect on this problem, this,
right.
This issue. And also, I'm finding out I'm benefiting. I can actually be somebody. I can talk to my peers, and
right.
It brought me out of my shell.
Right, because what drew me closer to the program was, especially now, kids, I feel a little uncomfortable talking to adults about certain things, but they're more likely to talk to their peers about sex and things that really affect them and that concern them. And that's what made the program, and still makes the program so successful. And
it obviously had effect on you. You told me earlier you went to Howard University, and now you have a career. And do you ever think to yourself, gee, what kind of person would I have been had I not had this program?
Well, it just really gave me a great opportunity, allowed me to go to Howard University because, to be frank, I didn't have the money to go to such a wonderful institution, but I got a lot of scholarships from from doing my peer education work. It allowed me to feel comfortable speaking in front of groups, and to this day I still speak to a large number of groups.
And now you're on television.
And now I'm on
goodness sake.
television.
I have to say, and I'm very proud, my family has a scholarship that we worked through
That's
Mr.
right.
Porton, and many years ago, Janelle was one of the winners of that scholarship, so I guess in some small way, what goes around comes around. Let's show this piece. I've told a lot of people that we're going to do this. I think one of the current peer educators is also on the phone. We're going to do that. We want to get back to Mr. Toro. A lot to do tonight. But this is a news piece that when BronxNet had a news show prior to News 12, it was the only TV news show in the Bronx, I did a news piece following Mr. Porton and the young people around on the street corners of the Bronx, teaching the people of the Bronx about AIDS. So Jane and Michael, if you'd be so kind, let's roll the video and let's take a look from 1993. Students of James Monroe High School are tackling AIDS head-on. At the forefront of AIDS education in New York City schools, Monroe students are bringing information right to the people on the street corners of the Bronx.
The program started out of what's known as a BASE grant, which comes from the Board of Education. The BASE means be active in self-education. The kids felt that AIDS and HIV prevention was certainly something that was top priority among their generation, and they wanted to do something about saving lives. We have gone to a number of public libraries and done presentations. We have done a number of other high schools. We will be going to Rikers Island one of these days.
So with guidance from Tom Porton and AIDS educational methods inspired by Project Bravo, the Monroe HIV peer educators put together the van, their material, and set out to educate about AIDS throughout the Bronx.
We were recipients of one of the 1993 Student Volunteer Service Awards, and that was given to the group at City Hall, presented by Storm Field last week. Only several groups, volunteer groups and individuals within the city received this, so it's a real honor and it's a real reward.
This group of Monroe peer educators is effective because of their commitment to the project, and also because when teens talk, teens listen.
When I first learned about the disease in 7th and 8th grade, teachers were just lecturing us about it. They didn't ask us questions. What would you like to know about it? Are you afraid? They didn't ask us questions. They just told us about it, and that was the end of the lesson. But with us, we go to the teenagers and we let them demonstrate how to put on a condom, those sort of things. They ask us questions. They're comfortable with us more than with adults.
Spend an afternoon with these students, and you learn that AIDS is not only a teenage problem. Everyone in the community is affected.
He was saying that a lot of people don't believe that disease could affect them until they really have it. And like I was telling them, that's what we try to educate people.
Having open, frank, sensitive discussions are part of the daily routine for these Monroe peer educators.
Lifestyles are basically good condoms because they lubricate it with non-oxynol 9, and even though they're colored, they're still effective. The natural lambskin condoms is not good because it has pores in it, which allows HIV and other STDs to come through. The glow-in-the-dark condoms are not good because they're just for fun. But if someone was to use a glow-in-the-dark condom, they should use a latex condom under it and have the glow-in-the-dark condom over it. But the best condoms to use is latex lubricated with non-oxynol 9.
If you're sexually active, or if you know anyone who's sexually active, we have different things on condoms and different kind of lubricants and things you can use.
Yeah, I've heard about this, but how can you, for example, me being a homosexual, how can I protect myself against AIDS?
Well, the same way a heterosexual can, by first of all, abstinence. We try to enforce abstinence, but if you are sexually active, we recommend condoms.
Tragically, many of these Monroe peer educators are motivated by having to deal with HIV in their personal lives.
My best friend, her little sister died of HIV, and that's why she wants to become a peer educator, my friend Ebony.
My ex-boyfriend's mother had AIDS, and she died last month.
My cousin had it, and she died from it. And, you know, nobody knew. I didn't know what it was until the day of the funeral, and it hurt me because, you know, I didn't think it could happen to any of us, you know. But it happened, then that's what made me, I want to know more about this. And I, when I found out that we had this in the school, I joined it. And, I learned how to protect myself and how to talk to my families and to my little cousins, as I'm the oldest. How to, when they get older, don't let anybody peer pressure you into having unprotected sex. If you're going to have sex, use a condom. That's, it's safe. It's second best to abstinence.
It was only a matter of time that a man inflicted with AIDS came by. He was given information about support services, but he also had something to say about these Monroe students.
I happen to be HIV positive, and I think what this group of people are doing here is very important and essential, because the youth are the ones that are most affected, and those are the ones that most need to be reached at this time. Okay, there are also those that are walking around that do not know they have it. They must go and learn, because there is a chance of preventing it from going into AIDS.
HIV peer educators from James Monroe High School have taken street corner language to a new level. The street corner language they're talking here is something that really might help solve the AIDS epidemic. I'm Gary Axelbank for BXNY. Well, there we are, and the first thing I have to show you, you notice I specifically put on the same tie. So I'd be wearing the same tie. Thank you. Jane says I wear it well. Janelle, you were in that piece. I didn't realize that was you. You're in that piece. When you look at it now, what does it make you think of?
Well, it seems like it was a lifetime ago, but it just reaffirms what great work we were doing and that we continue to do today.
What struck me as a TV news person is that there was some very frank dialogue there, which I don't know if that kind of thing would get on TV now, irrespective of that. Right. But you had to learn it, and that I could see how that would bring you out and make you become somebody, because you really had to, have some fortitude to be able to do it.
Right. We really had to know what we were talking about, and we had to build a level of credibility in order to get our peers to understand what we were saying and perhaps listen to what we were saying as well.
Tom, do you think you had effect on the Bronx and on some people, maybe even saved some lives?
I speak to a number of the peer educators through Facebook and on the phone on a regular basis, and many of them really believe that they had an effect. And I don't think about my having the effect, I think about them having the effect. And I think many of them really look back on this experience as saving lives, definitely.
And we could talk about how they became something. I mean, we have a manager in a school, but Sarah Clement, who's, you told me, one of the people.
She's a doctor.
She's a doctor now. We'd like to think partially inspired by what she was doing.
There was another young man who was a peer educator who also became a doctor, a young man named Ray Ramos, who actually went to Harvard and became a doctor, is still a doctor. I just was speaking to a young lady earlier today who's a clinical psychologist who
was a peer educator.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We do have one current one on the phone. Jane says Luz. I didn't say what part of the Bronx Luz was from, but okay. Good evening, Luz. You know who she is.
Yes, I do.
I'm sure, Mr. Porton. Hi, Luz. Welcome to the program. We lost her. She's not there. Well, I hope she'll call back.
Well,
that'll be fine.
I'll see her in the morning.
I do want, while we're on the phone, I want to get to Mr. Toro. Talk to me about the role that this plays in what you do at Montefiore Medical Center in the Adolescent AIDS program. Mr. Toro?
So, since its founding in 1987, the Adolescent AIDS program has provided medical care to more than 500 HIV-positive young people, aged 13 to 24. We are a full medical clinic providing all services that they need. We have social workers. We have a woman that does hormone therapy for transitioning youth. We have research studies that we involve our clients in. We do support groups. We do drop-in groups. Mm-hmm. We do educational field trips. We just try to make it as safe of a place as possible that these young people feel that they can go to get their care, to actually enjoy receiving their care with us. And, we want to make a difference in their life and make sure that they are living a happy and healthy life.
And what's your evaluation of what Mr. Porton and the students at the Monroe Academies do?
I think it's amazing, the work that they do. I've worked with Tom, I think it's 4 years already that I've known Tom. And, the work that they do is completely vital. Peer education programs are necessary for young people. If you look like the young people, if you talk like the young people, you dress like the young people, you are these young people. And by you providing this information to them as blunt and as honest as you can, the information is definitely going to stick, and it's going to resonate a little bit more in their mind, because it's not an adult trying to lecture them. It is not a teacher trying to lecture them. These are people that look like them, sound like them, and will give them the information that they need.
I guess in that way it makes your job easier. One question I must ask you, it was in the news very recently that the Montefiore Hospital closed its women's HIV center. Is this the trend that medical institutions are saying, well, we kind of got this licked, and so therefore we can start backing off on the care that maybe some people need?
Unfortunately, with the economic times, every agency, every type of agency is, feeling this. And, I just think that the way the epidemic has progressed over the years, with being those young MSMs of color and young women of color, since these are the increasing numbers that we're seeing in the epidemic, I feel like the money has been pushed around to follow the epidemic. And unfortunately, the work is still needed, and for this to actually happen is very sad, and it's very sad to see different agencies come and go, but unfortunately this is just the way the world works.
Although over the last 20 years the Bronx has had a resource, and that resource has come from young people in Mr. Porton's group at the Monroe Academies. Right now let's go to the telephone, and Luz is back with us from the Monroe Academies. Luz, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, thank you. Tell me about your participation in the peer education program at the Monroe Academies. Why do you do it?
Well, actually, 2 people in my family have been affected by HIV, and I want to do my best to help my peers and my friends to figure out that there's help out there in the world for them. The people that have HIV, some are scared probably, and they need help. So I want to reach out to my friends and help them and tell them there's protection and there's help out there so they can go and get help.
Has this been a good program for you as a young person in terms of your development and growth and education at Monroe and in the world?
Yes, it has, because actually right now I'm a freshman. I've just come to James Monroe, and I met Tom Porton, and he has helped me to join his club, his program.
Luz, is there anything else you wanted to say? I'll give you the open forum. We already did the shout out earlier, so is there anything else you wanted to say?
Well, I'm actually very proud that I met Mr. Porton. He's one of my leadership. I'm in his leadership class, and I'm very proud to have him as a teacher. He's taught me a lot, and I'm planning to go out through the rest of my high school years to be learning a lot of things with him.
Do you think about what you might do after high school at this point?
Well, I'm planning to stay with Mr. Porton, keep helping him with the HIV group peer education, and just keep going.
Great. Luz, thank you so much. And on behalf of everybody in the Bronx, thank you for the great work that you're doing.
You're welcome.
And Janelle is nodding. Okay. I guess, Mr. Porton, you hear that a lot from young people, that, gee whiz, I have a sense of purpose. I mean, you talked about it. What is the status of the program now in light of the budget cuts that Mr. Toro was talking about, and the light of the fact that there's a lot of pressure to do classroom work and maybe de-emphasize some of these extra programs?
Well, it certainly has changed. Incidentally, I just want to say that the young lady, Luz, said she's a 9th grader and she wants to keep doing that. This is what Janelle did. She started in the 9th grade and actually did it for 4 years, so that's a great commitment. And I really expect her to stay with it.
And by the way, I must add, nobody made her call and nobody asked her to say these things, but she felt compelled. Wow. And we look about the kind of passion we want to generate in young people. This is where it comes from.
Well, it's the kind of thing that has kept me as a teacher for 43 years at Monroe. That kind of caring about kids is really what keeps me going and keeps me young. And keeps me going despite the fact that I have all this gray, which I didn't have in that piece. But to get back to your question, most of the money that kept the program going has been cut. There used to be something that the Board of Ed gave us called base grants, Be Active in Self-Education. That was all cut. We've kept these conferences going only because the Montefiore Adolescent AIDS Program still funds our lunches, but almost all the other perks of giving giveaways, things like this and shirts and all of it.
Which we should say, it's not just a bear. It actually says...
it actually says AIDS has a cure, education, which is our theme. But we used to have lots of money for all kinds of stuff.
To really promote the program and
trinkets which would attract teenagers and get the message out there.
Is there a point where you have said to yourself, gee whiz, you know what, I can't keep fighting for this funding and maybe this is not worth doing
Well,
anymore?
you know, I'm footing some of the bills out of my own pocket nowadays because I want to keep the program going. And as I said, the Adolescent AIDS Program has given us the money to keep these conferences going. And next week we'll have our 20th conference because of their support.
I know that Jane is going to put up your contact info. You brought some other things which we do want to show. You got
Right.
T-shirts, and
well,
let's do that real quick.
This is an old T-shirt that we used to... AIDS lives in every neighborhood. Alien.
Okay.
This is a shirt which we use to teach tolerance.
Black, white, red, yellow, brown, human.
That's right.
Very
and I brought
good.
this one to give you, Gary.
Ah, there you go.
That's
I support the notion. Thank
That's
you
right.
so much.
And the teddy bear is also yours, and I know you need this badly. Just to give you an idea of some of the stuff we give out at these conferences, we get these free from the New York State Department of Health.
Sure.
Something like this, 101 Ways to Make Love.
Let me just go to the phone. Justin, thank you so
Yes.
much, and thank you for the great work you and Montefiore Medical Center are doing in the Bronx.
They are.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much
Janelle,
for having me.
we'll give you the final word. What has this meant for you, and what do you think this all means, 20 years of AIDS peer education in the Bronx?
Well, this group was very instrumental, and not only the group, but Mr. Porton as well. I have to agree with Luz. He was very instrumental in my development as well as my participation in the group, and it just does me proud to see 20 years later that the group is still functioning and still getting the message out there.
Must make you feel real proud to hear someone like Luz get on the phone, and I could see it on your face.
I was just smiling. I was so happy. I'm like, yes, and that's exactly what we wanted.
What you wanted when you were part of the founding
Exactly.
member of it. Well, listen, Tom Porton, thank you, and I hope the powers that be will keep supporting this, because I think it's pretty obvious from this program how valuable it is. Justin Toro on the phone. Janelle Askew, continue doing great work in the Bronx, inspired by your high school career. And folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of Bronx Talk available at bronxnet.org. You click Bronx Talk on the right-hand navigation bar. Also, please become a fan of Bronx Talk on Facebook. Next Monday night, we'll delve head into the aftermath of the tragedy that was on the Bronx River Parkway. We'll have traffic experts to talk about what has been done and what should be done to prevent tragedies like this from ever happening again. Then the week after, we'll give the kids in an innovative educational program a chance to shine. Then on June 4th, we'll talk about the draconian budget cuts proposed for after-school programs and daycare. Lots to do. Bronx Talk, Monday nights at 9, and we'll see you every week. Good night. Thank you. Thanks to them.